Welcome back, students. In this session, we'll be starting with a new chapter, that's chapter 7 on East India Company. Okay, so East India Company, last chapter we have studied about how the regional powers have emerged in India, and how at the end we have studied how East India Company came as a trading company but had established its rule over all of the most of the part of the country, or rather all the country, the whole country. So after the discovery of the sea route or trade route by Vasco da Gama in 1498 CE, many countries like Portugal, Holland, Britain, France and Denmark established their trading post in India. Okay, so they wanted to expand their trade in India. Now British came as a trading company, as East India Company, and then established its colonial rule over India. So there was a long-term conflict between the East India Company, which was by Britain, and the French East India Company, who wanted to increase their possession over the territories and who wanted to increase their colonial rule over India. And there was a conflict between them as well, the British and the France. And ultimately the Britain became victorious and had established control over whole of India and made India one of its colonies. So first we'll be dealing with English East India Company. So English East India Company came to India first at 1608 CE, but it could not start its trading, or could not gain the trading rights at that point of time. In 1618 CE, by the Farman of the Mughal ruler Jahangir, the English East India Company got its trading rights, and it rights to set up a factory at Surat and other areas at lower taxes. And consequently, after that, Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan also gave them the right to have trade in India and issued a royal firman in 1634 CE, which permitted British to trade in India in parts of Bengal. Then the company started buying and created its assets, created its land assets and forts to protect their property. In 1639 CE, the company bought a piece of land from the chieftain of Chandragiri and founded the state of Madras, where the company built its fort known as Fort St. George, and it made Madras was made the headquarters headquarters on the east coast. Here, so this was headquarters of the British East India Company in the Coromandel coast. Okay, so and then subsequently in 1651 they established their factory on the banks of Hooghly River, and in 1661 Charles II, the King of England, got married to a Portuguese princess, Catherine, and he got Mumbai or Bombay as a dowry, as a form of dowry, which was given back to company in order to establish its factory. Then Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb also gave firman to the British East India Company to trade in Bengal. So when the trade expanded, the merchants and traders were encouraged to settle here. Okay. So in 1696, the company built fort. So gradually, when they started expanding their territories and they were granted trading rights, they started establishing their this forts near the settlements in order to make the merchants and the people, the army, to live there, to settle there. So the company built a fort around its settlement in 1696 CE, and the company even bribed the Mughal officers to gain the zamindari rights over the territories of Govindpur, Sultanutti and Kalikata. These three villages together formed Kolkata. So then by 1696 CE, the factory center was fortified into Fort Williams, And so Fort Williams was formed as a headquarter in the in Bengal, from where the company operated, and it became one of the uh, places where the settlement of the British East India Company. So to protect the rights of the British settlements, the company began to intervene more and more into political affairs, and company expanded and they launched. So now what happened? They started while living here, while making settlements, while establishing settlements, it started to intervene into political affairs. And because of the rise of regional powers and the decline of the Mughal power after Aurangzeb, they started like the regional powers did not want to. Few of the regional powers did not want to want British East India Company to trade in their places. So they started intervening into the political affairs, and there was another rivalry. The French East India Company also had their possessions, their factories set over many places, and under the policy of Dupleix, they also had enough possessions in India. So there were three Carnatic wars which was fought between the Britain and the France, and to establish their colonies in India, but ultimately Britain became victorious. Now, conquest of Bengal. This was the first conquest. The Mughal Emperor Farrukh Shah granted trading rights to the British Company, East India Company, to have trade in Bengal, and this was granted by a firman that gave the company the rights to trade duty free in return of a very small fee to the Mughal court. So a dastak was issued to the company for foreign trade, which exempted the goods of the payment, which exempted the goods of the payment of this internal duties and all this custom duties and everything. So it exempted those goods. So servants of the company misused this dastaks by selling the dastak to Indian merchants on after receiving commission and all. So the governors of the Bengal governors who were appointed there denied the company any such right, because this was at the expense of the revenue which was collected from Bengal, and claimed that the company was depriving Bengal government of huge amounts of revenue, because at that point of time Bengal was very prosperous and it used to receive huge amount of revenue, which was denied by the company, by the actions of the company. So the conflict started between the Nawabs of Bengal and the East India Company. So despite the protest of the Nawabs, the British continued increasing their trade interest in Bengal. Finally, there was a conflict with Siraj-ud-Dawla, who was the grandson of Ali Verdi Khan. So he was the governor of Bengal in 1756 CE. So he protested against the activities of the company, and he tried to resolve it by evicting British East India Company from that place, by giving this excuse that they were increasing their fortification, they were increasing their possessions in Bengal, and in Bengal against Siraj-ud-Dawla, and they were also harboring political offenders. They were also allowing political offenders to join them. So on this pretext, they wanted to evict the East India Company. Siraj-ud-Dawla seized the factory of the company, which was at Qasim Bazar, and so that factory, which was not a manufacturing unit but a storage unit, was was taken over by Siraj-ud-Dawla on 4th June 1756 CE. So they got hold over that place, the factory at Qasim Bazar, and after British settlers and military commanders evacuated the fort, Siraj-ud-Dawla marched towards it, and they got that place again under their control. But and also captured Fort William, which was the headquarters of British settlements or fortifications in Bengal. But the British again took control over that place, over Fort William and the place, by 1757 CE, after the Battle of Plassey. So conquest of Bengal, how it started with British settlement, increasing of British settlement, we have covered. Now we'll be talking about Battle of Plassey. Battle of Plassey happened in 1757 CE. So when Sirajuddaula got hold over that Fort Williams and the manufacturing unit in Qasim Bazar, the British in Bengal sent urgent appeals to Madras, that is the headquarters in the Coromandel Corps, for reimbursement as well as for reinforcement in the army. So Robert Clive was sent along with Admiral Charles Watson, along with the fresh troops were sent to recover Calcutta. So they recovered Calcutta in January 1757 CE and declared a manifesto against the Nawabs. So what manifesto was that? That was a manifesto of wars. Like, if you don't give us this, or if you don't sign the treaty with us, then we will be calling for a war. So Sirajuddaula was compelled to restore the trading rights, trading privileges and right to the merchants according to the Treaty of Alinagar. Treaty of Alinagar with the British, which was a humiliating treaty, but he was compelled to agree to that treaty, and he had to give back the trading rights to the company. So after this, the British wanted to replace Sirajuddaula. So he, after knowing that the political structure of Bengal was not very strong, so by conspiring with the commander-in-chief, that is Mir Jafar, then the treasurer, that is Ami Chand, and the banker, that is Nawab Jagat Seth, all of them conspired with British in order to overthrow Sirajuddaula. So in return for that, Mir Jafar was promised the Nawab, promised to be made the next Nawab by the Britishers. So they signed a secret treaty with the British. So after signing the treaty, British kept some impossible demands in front of Sirajuddaula, and the refusal led to the Battle of Plassey. So the British accused Sirajuddaula of conspiring with the French against them, and Robert Clive in return went with the army and marched towards Murshidabad. So Sirajuddaula could sense some conspiracy which was happening in his own under him, or in his own setup camp with the British. So on 23rd June 1757, the Battle of Plassey was fought in north village of Plassey on the banks of the Hooghly River. So Sirajuddaula could understand there was some conspiracy which was happening within his camp, and he fled. He fled from the battlefield, but was caught by a partisan of Mir Jafar and was killed. So after this battle, what happened? This was the first battle of independence. This was called the first battle of independence. So after this battle, what happened? Mir Jafar was made the Nawab of Bengal and was offered the Jagirdari of the 24 Parganas. Then British got the control of the wealth and the armies of Bengal. So they became more powerful by having the wealth, the control over the wealth and the army, and the company got undisputed rights to free trade. British recovered from all its previous deficits and had the entire Bengal under its control. So they got the whole of Bengal under its control. So this was a very decisive battle between Sirajuddaula and the British officers, and the Sirajuddaula suffered a defeat because of the conspiracy which was happening in his camp by the greedy officers with the British. Now, East India Company transformed from a truly trading company to a military power. So it started intervening in the political affairs also. So this military supremacy culminated in the Battle of Plassey, which after the seizure and control of the Bengal. So this actually helped Britain to have control over the Bengal and to keep the French away, to keep the French company away. So the policies of the British ruined the formerly rich province of Bengal. So Mir Zafar, who was offered the Nawabship of Bengal, now what happened after he was facing so many difficulties, like he was facing constant rising demands of the British, then he was also facing the revolts from his own province, and he was harassed and by the British and pressed for funds. This led Mir Zafar to turn against the British. So after Mir Zafar turned against the British, the company took this opportunity to replace Mir Zafar with Mir Qasim. Mir Qasim was the son-in-law of Mir Zafar. So Mir Qasim was an able administrator. So after he got his power, what he did, he shifted his capital from Murshidabad to Munger in Bihar, so that it can be kept away from the interference of the British. He again reasserted his authority by changing the corrupt nobles in his court, by changing the people who were close to British and was having power, and then by also training his army by the Europeans. Okay, so he also reasserted his powers, and he also introduced some administrative reforms. He abolished the internal trade duties, which made the Indians and the European merchants same. Like they gave the same rights and opportunities to both the Indians and the European merchants, which angered the British. So this equal status. This equal status was given to both the armies, both the merchants, Indian and the European merchants. So this led to an attack on the city of Patna by the British, and after defeating Mir Qasim, again Mir Zafar was kept as a Nawab. So this led to the Battle of Buxar. Now Battle of Buxar happened in October 1764 CE. So after Mir Qasim, now after this Patna, after there was an attack in Patna and Mir Qasim was replaced, Mir Qasim wanted to recover his territory and his throne. So he escaped to Awadh and joined hands with Shuja-ud-Dawla, who was the Nawab of Awadh. So Shuja-ud-Dawla, Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II and Mir Qasim, three of them aligned together against the British and fought the Battle of Buxar in 1764 CE, in October 1764 CE. So these combined forces were defeated by the British, and who was led by Major Monro. So all these three forces was defeated. Then Mir Qasim fled from the battle, and we do not know about the whereabouts of what happened. It is probably he died in 1777 CE, but Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam II surrendered. So there was a treaty which was signed, Treaty of Allahabad, which was signed by Shuja-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam II with the British. Now what are the repercussions of this Treaty of Allahabad, which was signed in 1765 CE. So in 1765 CE, this Treaty of Allahabad was signed by Shuja-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam II and British. So what are the conditions? The company agreed to give a compensation of 26 lakh annually to the Mughal Emperor, and in return they secured the Diwani of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. Then Shuja-ud-Dawla got Awadh, but restricted, but did not, like the districts of Kora and Allahabad were separated from Awadh and given to Shah Alam II. Then the Nawab of Awadh had to pay more than 50 lakhs as war indemnity. Along with, they had to keep the army, maintain the British army in their province. So British got the free trade in Awadh, free trading rights in Awadh, but the British army had to be maintained in the expense of Awadh. Now the Nawab was a nominal head by the Treaty of Allahabad. So this marks the beginning of the political interference of the trading company in the internal administration of the regional powers in India. So they started expanding, the British East India Company started expanding their possessions in India by after getting the control over the province of Bengal. Now, dual system of government was established by so after this after this battle of Plassey and Buxar, so the system of dual government was introduced by Robert Clive, and where the British company got all the powers but no responsibility. So how the administration was divided? Administration was divided into two parts, that is Nizamat and Diwani. Nizamat and Diwani. So after the death of Mir Zafar, his son was made the next Nawab of Bengal. So he had to transfer the Nizamat, that is the powers to have criminal justice and administration, general administration was given, like he had to transfer the powers to the deputy Nawab who was appointed by the British. So they are having control over the administration. So in 1769 CE, the English supervisor, also known as the collector, this post was introduced, was appointed to control the native revenue officers. Now the revenue also got under the control of the British company. So the deputy Diwans were appointed for Bengal and Bihar to collect the Diwani. Now Diwani, that is the revenue from the states, were collected by the British officers who were appointed as collectors, who had a control over the native revenue officers. Now Bengal came under direct control of the company. So after this, the results of dual government, what happened? So the dual government led to the misery of the peasants and the common people. So the common people faced plunder, corruption, and maladministration. So this they had to pay taxes to the government, but the British administrators or the British company did not think about the welfare of the people. They just wanted the revenue from them, and since Bengal was a rich province at that point of time, they could get enough and more revenue from here. So the company did not take care of the welfare of the people. The condition of people deteriorated more, especially after the famine that happened in Bengal, and in which the people got worstly affected. So neither the company nor the Nawabs looked after the miseries of the people, which led to huge hue and cry and huge revolts from the people. So as the British Parliament came to know that the dual system of government was actually leading to all these difficulties, and the company took direct control over the British administration of the Bengal administration. So in 1772 CE, Warren Hastings was sent in to Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal. So by the Regulatory Act of, this act is also very important, by the Regulatory Act of 1773, the Governor General of Bengal, this post was created, and the first Governor General of Bengal, Warren Hastings, came to India, who abolished the system of dual government, and the British became the most important functionary of the British East India Company. He also introduced various reforms and worked for the expansion of the British territories beyond Bengal. So this is how the British company started as a trading company and had established its control and possession over whole of India, especially starting with Bengal. So hence we come to the end of the chapter. We'll be starting with a new one next class. Thank you.